is advised.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Board Games Unlocked, and today I'm doing a no run-through review for the solo variant of Anachrony with the expansion Fractures of Time. This is going to be me talking about the Chronosus variant, the solo opponents, because you have the Chronobot, which is still basically an updated version from the base game, and the new solo opponent with the Chronosus, which is a completely new opponent that can be combined with all of the different expansions. And I'm going to be specifically talking about, one, how he works, and two, how he works with the Fractures in Time expansion. And I gotta say, it does not disappoint. This is still easily the best solo variant in my opinion. Anachrony is just a phenomenal game, and with an AI that feels like it feels like another player. Everything that it's doing feels like another person is making those decisions, and I just think that's great. The one of the things that I harp on when it comes to solo variants is the scale of difficulty, where they just get to do everything for free and there's no limitations, so you're busting your ass the entire game, really working hard, and then they're just going, oh yeah, I'll take this, I'll do this, I'll take this, oh, okay, oh you never had a chance of winning, okay. And that is not the case here. He is still a difficult AI. Like, it is a hard variant. However, it is not impossible. For the record, I did lose my recent game against him, but I made conscious decisions that I knew were probably going to hurt me in the end. Basically completely ignoring the time travel aspect, going back in time and trying to fix my paradoxes, which then led to me getting anomalies, which I had to try and get rid of instead of getting the negative points. And so, basically, if you're not familiar with the Chronobot, it does, or even his newest solo variant from Tawantin Tsuyu, there is a board. He has, I guess I can just take all this off because I'm not playing it anymore. He basically has this board that has these command tokens, these numbered command tokens that go on a spot. And for his turn, you roll a die, and then he does the action that corresponds to the number. And the way that this works is the certain number of command tokens go in kind of a particular loop. For example, the number 3 is only going to stay up here. So number 3, he will go for water, he'll do time travel. There's a new action tokens that come in depending on which expansion you're playing him with. Then he will build a super project, and then he'll try and get rid of an anomaly. So it's basically going to go in this loop each time you roll a 3. And then, of course, the other colors do something different, and so on and so forth. And this is also a great board management because it tells you, okay, if he gets one of each resource, he turns those in for 5 points. If he gets one of each worker, he turns those in for 5 points, and then down here at the bottom is where he collects his buildings that he builds. Now, I will say, he still does, he doesn't have to spend resources. The only time he does have to spend resources is to get rid of anomalies. But, like, in terms of getting buildings or super projects, he just does. However, the reason why that's not as aggravating as it is in some other games it's because he doesn't build all the time, and he has a cap. It's like, if you happen to roll the same number over and over, and he builds a water building each, like, a lot, he's only limited to 3. And any time that the Chronosus or Chronobot can't do something, they get a victory point, just one victory point. And the reason why that's still okay is I love the cap. Otherwise, he would just have a stack, because he does go for the highest victory point one, which most likely another player would do as well, unless he really wanted, like the action. But most likely someone's going to go for the higher victory point, which is what they do. And then it's like you have other actions that you can do that he doesn't get to do. Like, for example, the evacuation action, where he's not going to get to do that. He doesn't have an endgame condition. He's still very limited on his actions because he doesn't have board actions. You have basically your own your own board where you have particular actions that you could do. The AI only ever gets to do, main board actions because he only has exosuits. So it's balanced in that way to where whenever he takes a building, it's like, oh, okay, it's not frustrating. I love this system. This is such an elegant, streamlined system that even though you're rolling a die for his turn and you're like, okay, I rolled a 4, what's he doing this time? Oh, he's building a 10 thing. Boom. You just take it and that's it. And then you move on to your turn. You still get to play your game like you would against another enemy, like another human being in a 2-player game. And you're not impacted really by what they're doing. You're still taking into consideration their victory points and your victory points, and whoever has the higher wins. And I just think it's fantastic. Even though I don't think I've ever beaten him. I think for the run-through, I did a run-through for the solo variant with the base game of Anachrony, so go check that out, and you can go check out that discussion. But spoilers, I think I lost by a point. I did a lot better in that game than I did against him. And man, it's just rough. But here's the best thing about this, is the fact that you get to take this rulebook, and you get to be like, oh, what variant do I want to play with? Doomsday? Okay. It's right there. You get to play with any module that you want. I don't think you can combine modules. At the end of this rulebook, it tells you combining expansions, and it even says Doomsday cannot be combined with basically any of them. But it gives you a chart of what you can combine the expansions with when playing solo. My recommendation would still be just pick one module and play it, because even though it's very streamlined, it's still a lot because you're competing against someone who feels like another human being. So you want to be a little bit more conscious. You don't want to have to keep track of every single module. But I just love this solo variant. So I mean, the Chronosus and the Chronobot are similar in terms of kind of how they play. Even though there is a particular structure, they still keep track of their buildings, but there's still kind of the loop, and then the fact that the Chronobot collects water and stuff like that, whereas the Chronosus doesn't. And I thought it was actually pretty cool. The two big things. One of them is because of the fractures of time, but the other one is you have you like my Legend of Zelda Christmas mug? You have basically these tokens, the power cores and exhausted power cores. And what you do is whenever you're powering up suits, you power up as many as you can, at least 3 before the impact, and it's going to get at least 3. So the Chronobot and Chronosus will never do less than 3 actions, for sure. But you basically take 3, and then you draw 3 of these tokens from a cup or a bag, which I wish the game came with a bag. That was actually kind of annoying, because I don't like drawing from cups. And basically, for each unexhausted power core, he gets another power suit. So it could range from 3 to 6 actions that he's going to get. But what's really cool is that afterwards you take an unexhausted core, move it back into the cup or the bag, and then you put the other ones away. So over time, if he's not doing actions that get him more power cores, which you have to consciously do as well as a human player, then he's not going to be doing a lot. Similar to you're not going to be doing a lot on the main board if you don't have power cores to send out more people. It's brilliant. It's fantastic. Now he has actions that he eventually will get to that will get him more power cores, so then he can potentially do more. But eventually, my first draw with him on this most recent game, the very first draw was all 3 of these power cores, which removed 2 of them from the game. However, 1 still always stayed in. So eventually he'll most likely get to do more than 3 actions, but after the impact, then he does 2 plus the number of power cores you draw. I think that's amazing. It's mind-boggling at how fantastic this solo variant is. I cannot praise it enough. Now, what's even more cool is, unlike the base game of Anachrony, where you had a bunch of modules that the AI wasn't compatible with, like I said, this is. And go watch my review over the Fractures of Time expansion, because I talk about what I think about that. But here, I played the Chronosus with the Fractures of Time, and it was just as amazing. Like, the fact that they made it in such a way that you take these like command like actions, and you slot them in certain sections so that depending on the number or depending on the module you're playing, you're going to have these action tokens that get slotted in the spot, which, I mean, they have their own rules, but it doesn't like make it any more confusing, really, because it was just like, oh, okay, well, there's 3 new actions in here. One of them is just gives him power cores and flux cores, and the other ones are like, okay, well, he goes there and he gets a technology, or he recruits an operator, or he goes there and he just gets, in this case, he would go to the valley, the one where you get the flux cores and the power cores, and he gets 2 of each, which I still didn't feel like it was broken at all. The fact that he was able to utilize the expansion, and it felt like someone else was going and using that expansion, it's so good. Like, it's fantastic. Here's the thing. So you might be wondering, okay, well, hey Seth, I watched your review over the Fractures of Time. You're so cool. You mentioned blinking as a mechanism. How does the AI blink? It does it in a seamless way as well. So basically, what you do, a little fiddly, but really not too bad, is whenever you roll for his action, and you place an exosuit with a power core on it. And that basically means it is blink ready. And then you roll for his action, and you're like, oh, I rolled a 2. Okay, the 2 is on the build action. Well, okay, does he have a blink ready suit? So then you might notice I also have the second mug here. And these have these have the flux cores in them, as well as empty flux cores. So basically, what you do is you're like, does he have a blink ready suit? Which means a exosuit with a power core on it. Yes, he does. Alright, well then you draw from this bag or this cup, and if you draw an empty flux core, it just gets set aside, and he places a regular suit off of his board as normal. But if you draw one that is a actual flux core, then he blinks. And you basically you look at your board and you find the lowest numbered token that has a exosuit on it corresponding to an action. And that might sound confusing because I just kind of confused myself. Basically, let's say he wanted to build a power plant, meaning he wants to go to the build spot. Well, he has a blink ready suit. Let's say and then you look and you're like, okay, well, we have the number 2 on the the recruit section. So that would mean that, and if he has a suit on the recruit spot, then that means that that's the suit that he is going to blink with. So then you take the suit with the power core on it from the recruit spot, and you move it over to the build spot like you would when you were blinking as normal, I think. And then you take the power core off. So because he doesn't use workers, he just basically does a set collection with workers to get 5 points. So that is probably the most confusing part. And then if he doesn't have a command token on an action, he basically goes from the bottom left of his board and then just kind of goes up, and then he blinks that way. But other than that, which is probably the biggest thing to try and figure out whenever it comes to the Fractures of Time expansion module with the AI system, it eventually it makes a little bit more sense. You just kind of are able to take a quick glance and look and be like, okay, where does he have workers? Okay, well, he cannot move out of the valley. All right, so he's on the the mining section. Well, that's the lowest numbered one. Boom, he blinks and starts building. But what's fantastic about that is, once again, like the empty power cores, he has these empty flux cores that will stay in the cup or the bag, and eventually he will run out of power cores, and eventually he will do actions to get more power cores, meaning that he won't be able to blink as much, similar to a human player. I cannot stress enough at how much they have made the AI system feel like another human. It's just, out of every solo variant I have tried, this one and even Tricarion, like, it's fantastic. I don't know how they do it, but the empty flex cores and the empty power cores I really liked, because a lot of other games would just be like, oh, okay, max number of actions. All right, he's always going to do more than you. So, and you're like, okay, well, I'm going to lose. And the other thing about it is that he doesn't score endgame objectives. And with the solo variant, with the Chronosus, you have these endgame objectives that are kind of tiered. They're not as one note as like the original, like the base game, where it's like, oh, whoever has the most water at the end gets 3 points. You have these tiers of cards. I don't even know if you can see these, but basically, for example, like let's say this one is however many flex cores you have by the end of the game. So if you have 4, which is bronze, you get 1 point. If you have 7, you get 2 points, and if you have 10, you get 4 points. This one is how many buildings you have. If you have 8, you get 1 point. 10, you get 2. If you have your whole thing filled out, you get 4. And however many technologies you have. If you have 2, you get 1. If you have 4, you get 2. If you have 5, you get 4. So he doesn't score these. You are the only one that can score. So these give you as a personal objective to go for. And I really like how it's tiered. I ended up shitting the bed in my most recent game because I was 1 under every single one of them. Like, I had 7 buildings, I had 6 power cores, and I had 3 technologies. So I got like 1 point on each of them. So I was like, great. The other thing is that if you're with the Fractures of Time, he doesn't get glitches or anything like that. But I didn't find in the Fractures of Time glitches to be that big of a deal. They're annoying for sure, and they're negative points at the end of the game. But they're easy to get rid of. I guess also because they're easy to get. So he doesn't get that. And of course, like the Chronobot, for each warp tile he has at the end, he doesn't get negative points for either. So it's like you get bonuses to a bunch of other stuff, but he also doesn't take negative, so it balances out that way. And I felt that, but the fact he can still get anomalies, which is still cool. And like, so he will place warp tiles. You roll this the paradox die, and that determines how many warp tiles he places. And he has ways of getting them out, and then he has his own little time travel marker that he goes up on just like you would. I just thought it was fantastic. The fact that how he was able to use the Fractures of Time, the Valley board, how the blinking worked for him, because that would be easily the hardest thing to try and do, because it's a new mechanism for the expansion, and it's like it's easy for you as a player. You just pick any of your mechs that have someone in them and blink them to another spot, as long as you have the power core. So to make an AI consciously make correct decisions and go to a spot that works for them as well, it's just fantastic. So yeah, like I said, the Chronobot, you can go watch my discussion over the solar variant for Anachrony with that, and then the Chronosus, here it is. It is so good. So yeah, I think that's about it. And I'm gonna give this, on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm gonna give it another 10. This is such a good solo variant. And for me, for someone who doesn't buy games out for their solo, oh, does it have a solo mode? Well, it doesn't, I'm not gonna get it. That's never been the case. It's a good solo variant is always a bonus to me. And the fact that Anachrony is so solid in and of itself, and this expansion is fantastic in and of itself, and then you add a terrific AI solo variant on top of that, it's amazing. So yeah, I'm going to give the solo variant a 10 out of 10. And that's that, everyone. Let me know what you think of the solo variant or this expansion in the comments below. Other than that, like, comment, share, and subscribe, and have a wonderful whatever time of day it is for you. Hey everyone, thank you for watching, and I really hope that you enjoyed the video. If you would like to see more of my content, go ahead and click that subscribe button and the bell to be notified whenever I upload any new content. If you feel like supporting the channel, you can go ahead and click that Patreon link to be taken to my Patreon, and any help is truly appreciated. Other than that, stick around for any other run-throughs or reviews or cool top 10s or whatever I feel like putting on. Other than that, like, comment, share, and subscribe, and have a wonderful whatever time of day it is for you.